Hello, Bay Area. Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Nagaraj Annaya, where we dive deep into the trends, insights, and changes shaping the Bay Area real estate market. Today, we are excited to be joined by Ashima Dugal, an esteemed immigration attorney right here in the Bay Area. In this episode, we will explore the critical intersection of immigration and real estate, discussing how current policies and upcoming changes could impact home ownership, investment opportunities, and community dynamics across the region. Stay tuned for an insightful discussion with Ashima Dogal on the impact of immigration on a Bay Area real estate. Hello, Ashima. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Nagaraj. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, listeners, thanks for joining in today. So today we are going to discuss one important is why an immigration important issue in this election. Ashima, why this immigration has become an important issue? What do you think about this?
That's a great question. And the way you phrased it, why has it become an important issue? Because if you think about it, there's much bigger issues: the economy, layoffs, interest rates, as you're
Yeah.
affected with real estate. So immigration is usually not an American voter's top priority on how they vote, but it can be easily manipulated. Immigration can be easily manipulated by politicians, and obviously with former President Trump, it's been a source that he uses to create fear, to create anxiety, and that is what people are responding to. So all of a sudden, immigration, border security,
Mhm.
criminals and immigration, which is, there's very low rate of that, becomes a major issue in an election.
Okay. But what are the effects on immigrations? Let's talk about the two parties going on now, right? Let's talk about like what would be the effects on immigrations if the Trump is selected. First, let's talk about that, and then maybe then we can discuss about for the Harris also.
Yes. So, you know what? Former President Trump, even in the prior election cycle, focused a lot on immigration, and it worked for him. You
Okay.
know, he uh, um, he went after, he made people angry and fearful, and it resulted in higher voter turnout. Okay, and what did we see in the last election? I'm a U.S. immigration attorney. I've been practicing 20 years,
Mhm.
and it was I had a lot of sympathy and anger, for my clients. And they experienced a lot, and not just let's do a recap. And so these are the kinds of things we might, experience again, and it might actually um be a little worse this time around, unfortunately,
Mhm.
because it's a second time election. He knows how to maneuver the government to make things happen. So the very first thing that President Trump did back in January 2017 was go after Muslim majority countries. There was just a total ban,
Mhm.
and it targeted undocumented immigrants as well. He went after anybody who was here, unlawfully, and that includes visa overstays. And visa overstays, are Indians as well. They come here on a B1, B2 visa, and they're traveling, or they come here on a student visa, they're on an H1B visa, and they fall out of status.
Okay. Okay.
So don't think this could not affect us, that this is just, he's just going after Mexicans. That's not the case. And asylum seekers, refugees, they were definitely affected and impacted. He reduced the number of refugees admitted into the country, reduced federal funding for resettlement agencies, and there are a fair amount of Indian, immigrants who come in seeking, asylum or refugee. So, and then before we switch to the impact that we saw in the last Trump presidency on business immigration, on legal immigration, I want
Right.
to just um, remind, I guess, voters, this is, this discussion is neutral, but
Yes.
um, we all saw the horrific nature of separating small children from their parents,
Yeah.
and that still has consequences today. Some children were separated and they were never reunited.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about, the
I think before talking to about the Aries listeners, you're listening to a real estate show. Myself, realtor Nagaraj Anaya, and I'm talking to Ashima. This is like we're talking about the how the immigration would be impacted with the new elections coming up next week. So we are trying to be neutral and we're trying to discuss both on the Trump and Aries impact. So we just Ashima was talking about the Trump stuff, and now let's talk about the Aries. If the what are the
yeah,
effects on immigrations if Aries is elected?
yeah, sure. Nagaraj, could we finish like talking about Trump in terms of business immigration?
Sure, sure. Please go ahead. Yeah, Ashima.
So, we can talk more about what the Trump presidency may look like for immigrants, because he was, former president, and we know
Correct.
what happened. So it could be an escalation from the last time around. So, there were a long list of executive orders, policy initiatives that he took that affected legal immigration and, undocumented. So he can lengthen backlogs. We're not talking about the visa bulletin and green card retrogression. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
But we're talking about just biometrics appointments, the processing of H4, spousal um, authorizations. He went after that work authorization, and
Hmm.
it went from someone taking 3 months to 9 months to 18 months.
Okay.
And so he has that sort of, the president um, can take certain executive orders and create delays. And that's what we saw last time. In addition, we saw denial rates going up for H-1Bs. There were some statistics that it went up by 24%, H-1B denials. And
Okay.
it's hard to deny an H-1B, by the way. Like, if
Hmm.
it's um uh, if it's a specialty occupation, an engineer, a bona fide job offer, a real company, you can't deny that. And so it was very what we call ultra vires is a legal term. There's
Hmm.
no legal basis for it. And how did immigration, immigrants and companies and US immigration attorneys respond? They went to court. They went to federal court.
Mm.
And that so cases that were ending up a routine H-1B denial, an EB-1A denial, an NIW denial that, in prior administrations should have been approved, were denied, a certain percentage. And then people were ending up in US District Federal Court and winning.
Got it.
They did win. So cases went up by 500% in federal court. And so, I'm only suggesting that these are possibilities of what we might see in a Trump presidency based on what we experienced in the last, presidency.
Yeah. Listeners, you're listening to Real Estate Show. Myself, Realtor Nagaraj Anaya, and I'm talking to Ashima on the immigration being in a hot topic since the elections are near next week. So we just discussed about the how the what are the effects, and now let's talk about the effects if for an immigrants if Harris is elected. So Ashima, go ahead.
Yeah, so Vice President Harris is certainly more moderate. She's a child of immigrants, first generation, just like me.
Hmm.
I'm first generation. My parents immigrated from India, from New Delhi, in the 80s. So I grew up in the US, just like Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, everyone knows she's a child of India and Jamaican parents. But, because of the very angry and fearful rhetoric by President, Trump, by the Republican Party, she is, having to respond by talking about greater and greater border security, talking about being tougher on both legal and illegal immigration. But historically, Democrats are in favor of immigration, but it's hard to spell out the difference between we welcome high skilled STEM workers, but we're also going to be very tough on border security. From what I've read,
Hmm.
that is a difficult political message to send. And so, they're just quieter on the STEM workers and things. But I think that would be the major benefit, for with the Harris presidency. If you look at President Biden,
Yeah.
um, so he passed the Chips and Science Act, passed by Congress, but he really pushed for it. That would help the U.S. semiconductor industry.
Hmm.
He also is in favor of increasing STEM workers in the U.S. through different legislation. The administration proposed, which was unfortunately did not pass, but he did propose that there would be an increase in STEM workers, 250,000 additional visas, but that did not pass.
Okay.
Um, but that gives you a signal of what we can expect from a Harris presidency is, more sensible, more sound immigration policies, not based on fear.
Yeah, listeners, you're listening to Real Estate Show. Myself, Realtor Nagraj Annaya, and I'm talking to Ashima Dugal on the immigration being an important issue in this election. But Ashima, but what about all this like illegal immigrants coming into this country? There's a huge news going on around. What do you say about that?
Yeah, sure. So, with regional economic changes, with South America, Latin America, there's always going to be a reasonable amount of influx. Now, I've been practicing 20 years, and so while I focus on business immigration, I follow the news.
Hmm.
Some of the statistics of, oh, 40, 50 million immigrants are coming in illegally. That's what the Trump administration, not administration, their campaign is saying. That's just false.
Okay.
That's not true. And so that's again fear, anxiety. Oh no, America will lose its identity. And that's what they're suggesting. And it's similar to, they make similar arguments in the last election. I remember they didn't, want Indian immigration, and Stephen Miller, one of the after Trump was elected,
Hmm.
he spoke out and he said, well, we don't want Silicon Valley to be run by Indians. I mean, he didn't say that exactly, but
Okay.
he implied that. He
Yeah.
implied that, and so um, I think that illegal immigration is, there are processes in place.
Hmm.
Um, both candidates are supporting a remain in Mexico policy, which means that, if you do cross over, or prior to crossing over the border, whether it's in California, Arizona, Texas, they can process you, from an immigration, whether you're seeking asylum, but you have to stay in Mexico while it's being processed. I mean, I really, they have small children. Mexico's not always so welcoming and safe for them.
Mm.
Um, and there's a benefit. We all benefit. The American economy benefits from immigrant workers with low skilled immigration.
Okay.
Seasonal crops, agriculture, um, restaurant staff, and once you are here and you are processed, um, whether it's for asylum or some other, sponsorship, some other legal basis for you to be here.
Hmm.
And if you get temporary work authorization, you're paying into the system. You're paying Social Security. It's not like, there's 20 million undocumented who are just taking advantage. That's all not true.
Okay.
Um, So, and unfortunately, the undocumented who are working, whether it's through, fake social security numbers or however they're doing it, I don't know. Um, they're actually paying into the system. They're paying taxes, they're paying social security, but they're receiving no benefit from it
Mm.
because, it's not so um, a lot of what you hear about illegal immigration is based on fear and arising people's anger, so they get out and vote.
Okay. Listeners, you're listening to Real Estate Show. Myself, Realtor Nagraj Anaya, and I'm talking to Ashima the girl on the all the immigration related. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at nagrajhomes.com, the Bay Area real estate friend. And if you want to reach out to Ashima, Ashima will give out her number at the end of the show. But now, Ashima, now let's do our conversation, like switch our conversation from election to one of the fastest immigration visa processing, right? What are the two immigration visa processing and how does it going to help the highly skilled laborers?
Great, great. So, if you are, in the Bay Area or in the US and working here, you're seeking a green card through your employer or, through your savings, through investments, the two fastest is number one, EB-1A,
Mm-hmm.
self-petition to a green card. That's extraordinary ability.
Mm.
And number two is an EB-5 regional center.
Okay.
Now, EB-1A has about a 3-year backlog before if your EB-1A is approved, it's about a 3-year backlog in the visa bulletin to apply for the green card.
Okay.
Now, if you have an earlier priority date from EB to perm that transfers, then it's much faster. You may have no wait, right? You
Okay.
can apply immediately. EB-5 is actually current
It's
for
current. Okay.
for Indians,
Mm-hmm.
regional center. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you do not qualify for EB-1A, you don't have any opportunities to build it, but you have a means to obtain 800,000 US dollars, whether that's refinancing your home,
Okay.
using stock, borrowing the money from a friend or somewhere else. Maybe in some ways you can actually borrow the money. Um, that is actually a very fast way to get a green card.
Okay. That EB-5, that 800,000 is the minimum, or like I think some centers it's costing you $1 million also, right? Is that?
The the investment itself in a regional center is 800,000.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're correct. It's 1 million for direct investments, like if it's your own business that you're investing in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the regional center that is rural or based on high unemployment, that is the limit is 800,000.
Yeah, listeners, myself, Realtor Nagraj Anaya, and I'm talking to Ashima, and we're talking all about the immigration and all about the EB-1A and EB-5. If you have any questions, go to nagrajhomes.com and click on a WhatsApp icon for the Bay Area real estate queries. And for the anything on the immigration, you can reach out to Ashima, like you can go to dugallaw.com or you can reach out at 650-569-0333. But Ashima, like since we talked about EB1, right? EB1A, what specific evidence or achievements qualify an individual for an EB1A visa? And how can like applicants best position themselves for approval?
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of criteria, and I'm sure some of the your viewers and listeners who are hearing it, there's 10 criteria. Generally, 8 criteria are more relevant for Indians in the Bay Area who are working in technology.
Mhm.
Um, those are going to be critical or leading roles. So if you are working at a startup or a large company and what you're doing has is making an impact across your company in terms of one of the leading products, you're one of the architects, you're you're one of the developers, you're enhancing the product significantly.
Hmm.
It's okay if you're on a team, but you are sort of a very critical member of that team. And we can show the impact through letters of recommendation, through other ways. So that's one. And then there's salary, there's judging the work of others, there's memberships, there's publications, and the publications can be in media blog, blogs, industry, like conferences, journals. So it doesn't have to be journals. That's actually a big question that, my clients ask me is when they schedule a consultation, well, we don't have any publication. How are we going to get an
Correct.
EBA? And I said, you don't need publications in journals. You don't. And there's so many more, media about you, there's the awards. So those are the criteria.
Yeah. But one quick question, right? Has the interpretation of the extraordinary ability changed recently? If so, how does this impact the potential for a EB1 applicants?
Sure. So there has been no policy change that has been announced,
Okay.
but we in my office we're doing a lot of EB1As, and so we do observe
Hmm.
that it has become, I would say, stricter. It
Stricter.
has
Okay.
been, it's um and then the two-step process is first you have to meet 3 criteria
Yeah.
minimum. The second step is called final merits.
Okay.
And final merits, we have to show that you are one of the few that has risen to the top in your field and that you have sustained acclaim over time.
Great. Mhm.
Those are more subjective.
Yeah.
And some of the criteria, like judge of the work of others, critical role, um, publications, all of that is important to meet final merits. But
Mhm.
in addition, you can present other things. You could present that, you've given a keynote, we're invited to be a keynote speaker. Maybe you just presented at a conference. And so, maybe you have a YouTube channel with, I don't know, 2 million subscribers. So different kinds of evidence can be helpful for final merits. And so the very recent trend we're seeing in EB1A is they're going after final merits. They're saying,
Great.
sure, sure, sure. We've granted you 3 criteria,
Mhm.
but you don't need final merits.
Okay. Listeners, one important announcement. I have a real estate connect event happening on a December 7th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at a Sunnyvale Shubham Halls. You can register for the event. It's from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on December 7th at Shubham Halls. To register it, go to nagrajhomes.com and use Bolly, Bolly, to get a free ticket. Ashima would be there and she'll be talking more about the EB1A, EB5, and there's a lot of experts, like even a CPA dude would be there, would be talking about the ways you can save your taxes. And myself will be there talking about the Bay Area real estate. If somebody or a first time home buyer or even a techie would like to understand what are the ways to get your green card faster, or out what are the ways to get your down payment saved for the next year, the mortgage expert will be there. So we would be talking about the different aspects of the Bay Area Real Estate Connect, and anything connected on the Bay Area Real Estate would be discussing. Don't miss out. Go to nagrajhomes.com and click on the register button there and use a Bolly, Bolly, to register for it. Thank you, Ashima, for joining in today. And if somebody wants to reach out, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure, you can go to my website and schedule a meeting. My website is www.duggallaw.com. That's Duggal law.com.
Yeah, listeners, if you have any questions in the Bay Area real estate, and recently you got one of the impacted by the job loss, and you had bought a house 2 years back, and would like to understand how do I, like, basically should I get rid of my house or should I switch to a rental? And if you have any questions on that, also you can reach out to me. Go to nagrajhomes.com and click on a WhatsApp icon. You can connect with me, and have a great, wonderful day. Thank you, Ashima.
Thank you.